You stole my life. Now I'll take your freedom." The sound of my wife's laughter drifting through our bedroom window at 2 in the morning wasn't what woke me up. It was the fact that I was sleeping alone in my beat-up Ford pickup truck, parked 3 blocks away from what used to be our home. My name is Daniel Pierce, and 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. 15 years as a financial analyst specializing in forensic accounting, plus 8 years of military intelligence before that. A beautiful wife named Amanda, who worked as a senior investment advisor at Denver's most prestigious wealth management firm. A gorgeous house in Cherry Creek that we'd renovated together. Our 17-year-old daughter, Lindsay, who was smart as a whip and heading to college next year. Now, I'm living in a studio apartment that smells like instant coffee and regret. Watching my wife through binoculars as she entertains her billionaire boyfriend in the house I helped pay for. "Real classy, Amanda," I muttered, adjusting the focus. Through the second-floor window, I could see her pressed against some tall, silver-haired guy, who definitely wasn't me. He was wearing an expensive suit even at this ungodly hour, and his hands were all over my wife like he owned her. Maybe he did now. The video call that started it all happened 3 months ago. Amanda was supposed to be on a routine business trip to Aspen, meeting with high-net-worth clients about portfolio restructuring. Nothing unusual. She'd done dozens of these trips before. What was unusual was her accidentally calling me at 11:47 p.m. Mountain Time while she thought I was asleep. The FaceTime notification lit up my phone just as I was reviewing some suspicious transaction reports for a client. I answered expecting to see Amanda in her hotel room, maybe wanting to say goodnight. Instead, I got a perfect view of my wife of 18 years in a silk negligee I'd never seen before, sitting on the lap of a man who definitely wasn't a client. She was giggling like a teenager, feeding him strawberries and champagne in what looked like the penthouse suite of the St. Regis Aspen. The guy had his hands everywhere they shouldn't be, and Amanda was loving every second of it. They were so caught up in their little romantic moment that neither of them noticed the active video call for almost 30 seconds. When Amanda finally saw my face on her screen, the color drained from hers faster than water down a drain. "Daniel, I can explain." I didn't say a word, just stared at her through the phone screen while my world collapsed around me. The man, tall, distinguished, probably mid-50s with the kind of confidence that comes from having more money than God, looked directly into the camera and smiled, actually smiled, like he was enjoying this. "You must be the husband," he said, in a voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Amanda's told me so much about you." I hung up. That night, didn't sleep. Instead, I did what I do best. I followed the money. See, when you've spent 15 years catching financial fraud and 8 years before that gathering intelligence on enemy assets, you develop certain skills. Skills like knowing how to trace credit card transactions, how to access travel records, and how to piece together a timeline of betrayal. Amanda's corporate credit card told a story she definitely didn't want me reading. The St. Regis Aspen, 5 nights, penthouse suite, $2,800 per night. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, dinner for 2, $347. Tiffany & Co. Purchase amount, $4,200. And this wasn't the first time. The pattern went back 10 months. Always when she was supposedly on business trips, always charged to accounts I'd never seen before. But here's the thing about financial analysts. We don't just look at what's there. We look at what's missing. And what was missing from Amanda's story was how a senior investment advisor making $180K annually could afford to drop $5,000 on a weekend getaway without touching our joint accounts. That's when I started digging into her client portfolio, using the administrative access I'd gained from helping her set up her home office network 2 years earlier. Amanda had always been careless with passwords, using the same combination for everything. My military training had taught me that information security was only as strong as your weakest human link. The next morning, Amanda came home acting like nothing had happened. She walked into our kitchen wearing her power suit and perfect makeup, poured herself coffee, and started talking about quarterly projections, like she hadn't just been caught red-handed cheating on her husband. "We need to talk," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "About what?" The audacity was breathtaking. "About Richard Blackwell." She froze with the coffee cup halfway to her lips. Bingo. Richard Blackwell, as it turned out, was the founder and managing partner of Blackwell Capital, a private equity fund worth about $2.3 billion. He was also Amanda's biggest client, with a personal investment portfolio. She managed worth roughly $47 million. He was also, apparently, the reason my wife had been working late so many nights over the past year. How did you find out his name? Honey, I track dirty money for a living. Did you really think I couldn't track yours? Amanda set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. Daniel, you don't understand. It's complicated. Enlighten me. That's when she told me the story she'd probably rehearsed a dozen times in her head. Richard was going through a messy divorce. His wife was trying to take half his fortune. Amanda was helping him restructure his assets to protect them from the settlement. Their relationship had started as professional consultation and gradually became personal. She never meant for it to happen. She was planning to tell me soon, all the usual cheater's greatest hits. What she didn't tell me was the part about the money laundering. See, while Amanda was feeding me her sob story, I was running forensic analysis on her client transactions. And Richard Blackwell's portfolio had some very interesting characteristics, like shell companies incorporated in Delaware with no actual business operations, like cryptocurrency transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, like real estate purchases under LLCs with untraceable beneficial ownership. Richard wasn't just hiding money from his ex-wife. He was hiding money from the IRS, the SEC, and probably half a dozen federal agencies I couldn't even pronounce. And Amanda wasn't just his girlfriend. She was his financial laundromat. Amanda, I said, closing my laptop, I think we should see a marriage counselor. Really? The hope in her voice was almost pathetic. Yeah, I know this great one. Her name is Julia Morrison, and she specializes in relationships where one partner is committing federal crimes. The color drained from Amanda's face for the second time in 12 hours. Julia Morrison wasn't a marriage counselor. She was a corporate attorney who'd been helping Richard structure his illegal transactions. I'd found her name on a dozen suspicious contracts in Amanda's files. That afternoon, while Amanda was at work, probably in bed with Richard, I paid a visit to my old Army buddy Steve Patterson, who now worked as a special agent for the Financial Crimes Division of the FBI. We'd served together in military intelligence, and Steve owed me about 15 favors from our deployment in Afghanistan. Danny boy, Steve grinned when I walked into his office. What brings you to the federal building? Finally ready to join the dark side? I need to report a crime, I said, sliding a flash drive across his desk. Financial fraud, money laundering, probably tax evasion, multi-million-dollar operation. Steve's expression turned serious as he plugged in the drive. 20 minutes later, he was staring at his computer screen like he'd won the lottery. Holy shit, Daniel. Where did you get this? My wife's been doing the books for a criminal enterprise. I want immunity for cooperation, and I want her prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. What about your marriage? What marriage? She's been stealing client funds to finance her affair. The marriage died 10 months ago. I just didn't know it yet. Steve leaned back in his chair. This Blackwell guy? We've been trying to build a case against him for 2 years. Your wife just handed us everything we need on a silver platter. There's more, I said, pulling out another flash drive. Personal financial records. She's been embezzling from her own clients' accounts to fund their little love nest. Elderly retirees mostly. People who trust her with their life savings. That's when Steve's expression went from interested to furious. Nobody, and I mean nobody, pisses off federal. Agents like people who steal from grandmothers. We'll need you to wear a wire, he said, already planning on it. The next 6 weeks were the most satisfying of my adult life. Every morning, Amanda would kiss me goodbye and head off to work, not knowing that she was walking into an FBI surveillance operation. Every evening, she'd come home and ask about my day, not knowing that I'd spent it providing testimony to federal prosecutors. The wire work was easier than I'd expected. Amanda had gotten so comfortable in her deception that she barely noticed when I started asking pointed questions about her client's portfolio performance. She'd answer while making dinner, casually mentioning how she'd moved Mrs. Henderson's retirement fund into a higher-yield investment vehicle, which translated to Richard's cryptocurrency slush fund. The Hendersons are such sweet people, she said one evening, stirring pasta sauce. 40 years of marriage, and they trust me completely with their nest egg. They have no idea how much I'm helping them. I nodded sympathetically while the recording device in my shirt pocket captured every word. What the Hendersons had no idea about was that their $380,000 retirement account had been systematically drained to pay for Amanda's designer clothes and Richard's penthouse lifestyle. Richard, meanwhile, was completely oblivious. He was so arrogant, so convinced of his own untouchability, that he never even considered the possibility that the betrayed husband might fight back. He probably thought I was some pathetic cubicle drone who'd just roll over and take it. The first time I saw him in person was at Cherry Creek Mall, where he was shopping with Amanda like they were some kind of power couple. I followed them at a distance, watching as they dropped $3,000 on shoes and jewelry like it was pocket change. Richard moved through the world like he owned everything in it, which I guess he thought he did. "Daddy, is that Mom?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. Lindsay had appeared beside me at the food court, following my gaze across the mall to where Amanda was trying on a diamond bracelet that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Yeah, sweetheart, that's Mom." "Who's the man with her?" This was the conversation I'd been dreading for weeks. How do you tell your 17-year-old daughter that her mother is a criminal who's been financing her affair with stolen money? "That's one of her clients. They're probably discussing investment strategies." Lindsay looked at me with those intelligent brown eyes that reminded me so much of myself at that age. "Dad, I'm 17, not 7. I know when adults are lying to me, and I know when they're holding hands. It's not about investment strategies." I sighed, watching Amanda laugh at something Richard said, while she admired the bracelet on her wrist. "It's complicated, Lynn. Is that why you've been sleeping in the guest room? Is that why you both think I don't notice the way you look at each other during dinner, like you're strangers?" Smart kid. Too smart for her own good, just like her old man. "Your mother made some bad choices, Lynn, but I want you to know that whatever happens between us, it has nothing to do with you. You're the best thing that ever came out of this marriage." Lindsay nodded slowly, still watching Amanda and Richard across the mall. "Are you getting divorced?" "Probably." "Good," she said, surprising me. "You deserve better than someone who lies to you every day." That night, I called Steve with an update on the surveillance operation. The recordings were piling up, and we had enough evidence to put Amanda away for a very long time. But Steve wanted to wait for the big fish. "We're close to getting Richard on tape discussing the offshore accounts," he said. "Your wife mentioned that he's planning a major fund transfer next week. We need him to explicitly discuss the money laundering operation." "How do you want to play it?" "We need Amanda to set up a meeting where Richard feels comfortable talking details. Can you make that happen?" I thought about it for a moment. Amanda's been stressed lately about some client audit. If I suggest she invite Richard over for dinner to discuss damage control, she might go for it. She loves playing the sophisticated hostess. Perfect. We'll have the house wired 6 ways from Sunday. The dinner party was Amanda's idea of high-class entertainment. She spent 2 days preparing, hiring a catering company, and buying enough wine to stock a restaurant. She wanted everything perfect for her boyfriend's visit to our home, the home where she'd raised our daughter and promised to love me until death do us part. Richard arrived at 7 sharp, bringing flowers for Amanda and a bottle of $1,000 scotch that he probably wrote off as a business expense. He was even more impressive in person than he'd been in surveillance photos. Tall, commanding, with silver hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences for your actions. "Daniel," he said, extending his hand like we were old friends. "Amanda's told me so much about you. Financial analysis, right? We should talk shop sometime." The audacity was breathtaking. This man had been sleeping with my wife for almost a year, stealing money from innocent people, and now he was offering to discuss business over dinner in my own dining room. "I'd like that," I said, shaking his hand while the FBI recording equipment captured every word. "Amanda says you have some interesting investment strategies." During dinner, Richard held court like he was the king of finance. He talked about market manipulation, regulatory loopholes, and the art of moving money without leaving paper trails. Amanda hung on his every word, playing the perfect supportive girlfriend while serving courses that cost more than most families spent on groceries in a month. "The key," Richard said, cutting into his filet mignon, "is understanding that money is just information, and information wants to flow freely. Government regulations are just temporary obstacles to be navigated around." "Like your Cayman Island accounts?" I asked innocently. Richard paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. Amanda mentioned those? She mentioned that you've been very creative with portfolio diversification, international markets, cryptocurrency platforms, shell corporation structures. Very sophisticated work. Richard relaxed, apparently deciding that I was just another financial professional admiring his expertise. The old ways of hiding assets are obsolete. These days, you need to think in 3 dimensions: legal structures, technological platforms, and jurisdictional arbitrage. For the next hour, Richard essentially confessed to every financial crime he'd committed over the past 3 years. He detailed the money laundering operation, explained how they used Amanda's client relationships to process dirty money, and even bragged about specific amounts that had been moved through their system. Amanda contributed her own incriminating statements, discussing how she'd convinced elderly clients to move their funds into high-yield investments that were actually Richard's slush funds. She laughed about how trusting people were, how easy it was to exploit their financial ignorance. Mrs. Henderson actually thanked me for doubling her returns. Amanda giggled, clearly a little drunk on wine and adrenaline. She has no idea her money is sitting in a Bitcoin wallet in Singapore. I smiled and nodded, while mentally calculating how many federal crimes they'd just admitted to on tape: wire fraud, money laundering, elder abuse, tax evasion, conspiracy. The FBI was going to have a field day with this recording. "What about the audit Amanda mentioned?" I asked. "Are you concerned about regulatory scrutiny?" Richard waved dismissively. "Julia Morrison has everything handled. She's structured the legal framework so that even if investigators find the money, they can't trace it back to us. Plausible deniability at every level. And if someone did try to investigate, who's going to investigate? Some suspicious husband?" Richard laughed, looking directly at me. "Most people are too busy with their own lives to pay attention to what their spouses are really doing." The irony was so perfect, I almost laughed out loud. Here was Richard, literally confessing his crimes to the man who'd been feeding information to federal investigators for 6 weeks, while making jokes about suspicious husbands. After they left that evening, Richard had to get home to his own wife, another layer of deception in his carefully constructed world. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the recording equipment Steve's team had installed. Hours of crystal-clear audio of 2 criminals casually discussing the systematic theft of millions of dollars from innocent victims. My phone buzzed with a text from Steve. "Outstanding work. We have everything we need. Arrests go down Friday morning." Friday morning, 3 days away. 3 more days of watching Amanda kiss me goodbye while planning to steal my daughter's college fund. 3 more days of listening to her lie about working late while she was actually in bed with the man who'd just eaten dinner at our table. The final piece of my plan came together when Lindsay called me Thursday evening crying. "Dad, something's wrong with Mom. She's been acting weird all week, and yesterday I saw her packing suitcases. When I asked her about it, she said we might be taking an extended vacation soon. Dad, I don't want to leave my friends in school. What's going on?" That's when I realized Amanda and Richard were planning to run. Probably figured the heat was getting too close and it was time to disappear to some non-extradition country with all their stolen millions. They were planning to take my daughter and turn her into a fugitive from justice, over my dead body. I called Steve immediately. "They're running. How fast can you move? We've been ready for 3 days. Just say the word." "Do it. But Steve, my daughter doesn't know what's coming. Can you make sure she's not here when it goes down?" "Already handled. We'll coordinate with the school to keep her there until after the arrests. She'll be safe." The arrests went down simultaneously at 6 a.m. on Friday morning. FBI agents hit Richard's penthouse in Lodo just as he was getting out of the shower. They hit Julia Morrison's law office just as she was trying to shred documents. And they hit Amanda at our house just as she was loading those suitcases Lindsay had seen into her BMW. I was there when they arrested Amanda, not hiding in the bushes or watching from a distance, standing right in our driveway with a cup of coffee and a front row seat to justice. Special Agent Sarah Chen led the arrest team, a woman about Amanda's age who looked like she could bench press a Buick. She'd been briefed on the entire operation and knew exactly how personal this case was for me. "Amanda Pierce," Agent Chen announced, badge held high. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." Amanda dropped the suitcase she'd been carrying. Designer clothes spilled across our driveway. outfits purchased with stolen retirement funds from people who had trusted her with their life savings. "Daniel!" she screamed as they put the handcuffs on. "You don't understand. I was going to leave him. I was coming back to you." "No," I said calmly. "You were about to make our daughter an accessory to your crimes. That's where you crossed the line from cheating wife to criminal." Agent Chen continued reading Amanda her rights while I watched from 15 feet away. The list of charges was impressive: wire fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, conspiracy, elder abuse. Each count carried serious prison time. "Ma'am," Agent Chen said as they led Amanda to the unmarked sedan, "do you have any idea who your ex-husband really is? We've been trying to build a case against Richard Blackwell for 2 years. Your husband handed us everything we needed on a silver platter." Amanda looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before: pure, undiluted fear mixed with dawning comprehension. "You see, honey," I called out as they put her in the back seat, "you forgot that I used to hunt criminals for the government before I started hunting them for private clients. The only difference is that now I get paid better." The media coverage was immediate and brutal. By noon, every local news station was running stories about the Cherry Creek investment scandal and the Blackwell Capital money laundering ring. Amanda's mugshot was plastered across newspaper websites alongside photos of Richard being perp walked out of his penthouse in handcuffs. I picked up Lindsay from school personally that afternoon, preparing for what would probably be the most difficult conversation of our lives. "Dad, what's happening?" she asked as soon as she got in the car. "Everyone's talking about Mom being arrested. They're saying she stole money from old people. That can't be true, right?" I pulled into an empty parking lot and turned to face my daughter, this beautiful, intelligent young woman who just had her world turned upside down. "Lynn, your mother made some very bad choices. She got involved with people who were stealing money, and she helped them do it. The FBI has been investigating for months, and this morning they had enough evidence to make arrests." Lindsay stared at me for a long moment, processing information that no 17-year-old should ever have to hear about her mother. "How long have you known?" 3 months, since the night she accidentally called me while she was with Richard." "You've been investigating Mom for 3 months?" Her voice was small, hurt. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I hoped I was wrong. Because I wanted to protect you from this for as long as possible. Because no father should ever have to tell his daughter that her mother is a criminal." We sat in silence for several minutes, watching other families drive past us, living their normal, uncomplicated lives. "What happens now?" Lindsay finally asked. "Now we figure out how to move forward. Your mom will probably go to prison for a long time. The house will likely be seized as evidence. But you and I, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. Dad, yeah, I'm proud of you for doing the right thing, even though it must have hurt." That night, I got a call from Steve with updates from the other arrests. Richard had lawyered up immediately and wasn't talking, but they'd found evidence of additional crimes during the search of his penthouse. Julia Morrison was trying to cut a deal by providing information about other clients involved in similar schemes. But the biggest news came from the forensic accounting team that had been analyzing the seized financial records. "Daniel, you're not going to believe this," Steve said. "We've recovered almost $4.2 million in stolen funds so far. Most of it was sitting in cryptocurrency wallets that Amanda set up. Your tip about following the blockchain transactions was spot on. What happens to the money? Restitution to the victims first, but there's going to be a substantial remainder. And given that you're technically a victim of spousal theft, and your cooperation led to the recovery, you're looking at significant compensation." The trials lasted 8 months and became the biggest financial crime story in Colorado's history. Richard hired a team of high-powered defense attorneys who tried every trick in the book, claiming entrapment, challenging evidence collection, even attempting to paint Amanda as the mastermind who seduced their innocent client. The jury didn't buy it. I testified for 3 days, walking the court through the forensic analysis that had uncovered the money laundering operation. The prosecution played hours of recordings from the dinner party, letting Richard condemn himself with his own arrogant words. When they played the part where he joked about suspicious husbands, several jury members actually laughed out loud. Amanda's defense strategy was more pathetic than Richard's. Her attorney, not Julia Morrison, who was facing her own charges, tried to paint her as a victim of Richard's manipulation, a loving wife and mother who'd been seduced by a dangerous criminal and forced to participate in his schemes against her will. The financial records destroyed that narrative completely. Amanda hadn't been coerced into anything. She'd been a full partner in the operation, taking a percentage of every stolen dollar and using the money to fund her affair. The prosecution showed evidence that she'd actively recruited new victims, targeting wealthy elderly clients specifically because they were less likely to scrutinize their statements. When they called Mrs. Henderson to testify about losing her life savings, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The sweet 73-year-old grandmother described how Amanda had visited her home, shared tea and cookies, and convinced her to move her entire retirement account into what turned out to be Richard's cryptocurrency slush fund. "She was like a daughter to me," Mrs. Henderson said, looking directly at Amanda. "I trusted her completely. When my Harold died, she helped me plan the funeral finances. How could someone do that and then steal from me?" Amanda broke down crying during Mrs. Henderson's testimony, but it was too late for tears. The damage was done, the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury had heard enough. Richard got 22 years in federal prison. Julia Morrison got 8 years for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Amanda got 12 years, plus full restitution to the victims she'd personally defrauded. I was in the courtroom when they read Amanda's sentence. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without her confidence and expensive clothes and billionaire boyfriend to hide behind. As they led her away in shackles, she looked back at me one last time. "I'm sorry," she mouthed silently. I didn't respond. Some apologies come too late to matter. The asset forfeiture process took another 6 months, but the results exceeded everyone's expectations. The government recovered $6.8 million in total stolen funds, including cryptocurrency accounts that Richard thought were untraceable and real estate holdings that Julia had helped structure under shell corporations. After victim restitution, legal fees, and court costs, I received $1.4 million in compensation for spousal theft and cooperation with federal authorities. Lindsay received another $300,000 that had been stolen from her college fund, plus interest and damages. We used some of the money to buy a smaller house in Boulder, close to the University of Colorado campus. Lindsay was a sophomore now, studying criminal justice with a focus on financial crimes. She wanted to be a federal prosecutor, she said, to make sure people like her mother never got away with destroying families. "I want to be like Agent Chen," she told me over dinner one evening, "someone who protects people who can't protect themselves." Lindsay was seeing a therapist to work through the trauma of discovering her mother was a criminal, but she was remarkably resilient. She'd inherited my analytical mind and my sense of justice, but she'd also inherited something I'd lost along the way, the ability to trust that most people are fundamentally good. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked me one Sunday afternoon as we hiked in the Flatirons. "Turning Mom in, I mean. You could have just gotten a quiet divorce." "Never," I said without hesitation. "Your mother wasn't just cheating on me, Lynn. She was stealing from people like Mrs. Henderson, people who worked their whole lives and trusted her with everything they had. I couldn't let that continue. Even knowing it meant prison for Mom, especially knowing that. Actions have consequences. Your mother chose to commit crimes, and criminals belong in prison." I was back to working as a financial analyst, but now I specialized exclusively in white-collar criminal investigations. Business was booming. Word had gotten around that I was the guy who'd brought down a $50 million money laundering operation and secured one of the largest asset recovery cases in Colorado history. Steve still worked for the FBI, still made terrible coffee, and still called me whenever they had a case that needed someone with my particular skill set. We'd become close friends again, bonding over our shared military background and his gratitude for the career-making arrest I'd handed him. On a warm Tuesday evening in March, exactly 2 years after Amanda's arrest, I was sitting in my office when the phone rang. "Pierce Financial Investigations." "Mr. Pierce, this is Detective Martinez with the Boulder Police. We have a white-collar fraud case with some unusual circumstances. Elderly victims, sophisticated financial manipulation, possible cryptocurrency involvement. The family specifically requested you." I leaned back in my chair and smiled, looking out at the Rocky Mountains turning purple in the sunset. Somewhere out there, Amanda was sitting in a federal prison cell in Texas, counting the days until her release in 2034. Somewhere else, Richard was doing the same calculation in a maximum security facility in Pennsylvania, and somewhere in between, families were being torn apart by greed and betrayal and lies, waiting for someone to help them put the pieces back together. That someone was me. I picked up a pen and a fresh legal pad. "Tell me about it, Detective Martinez. I'm listening." The work never stopped. Justice was an ongoing project, not a destination. But for the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged, protecting people who needed protection, using my skills to fight for families like mine that had been shattered by greed and betrayal. It was good work, important work, and I was just getting started.